Final Fantasy is a tale as old as time, and the 9th installment into the ever-growing franchise was an addition that received both critical praise and acclaim, as well as befuddled expressions from those who were garnered by Square thanks to 7 and 8. Released only 1 year after Final Fantasy VIII, and was the last Final Fantasy game for the first generation of PlayStation, Final Fantasy IX made its mark on the world on July 7th at the start of the new millennia in Japan, and November 13th the same year in North America. 9 is without a doubt one of the more underrated and overlooked games of the series, as 10's appearance was swiftly approaching, along with the groundbreaking technological classic that was the PlayStation 2. But ultimately, Final Fantasy IX was, more or less, deserving of the title Greatest Final Fantasy within Square's long list. Final Fantasy IX was truly a monument to the testament of time for the entire saga. Instead of pushing forward with futuristic settings and altered narratives that were more geared towards a younger audience that they could identify themselves within, Final Fantasy IX instead paid tribute to the days of old, throwing themselves back into a story about saving the world and the ever-inspiring endurance of our heroes. 9 was a game that took what made classic Final Fantasy great and polished it up immensely. Recognizable names and designs were spread throughout the entire world of this one-time epic, and were carefully crafted and placed in a way that was simply organic, as well as charming. What begins as a carefully planned heist to kidnap the princess of the Kingdom of Alexandria, slowly but surely progresses into a bond that ties them together, as each and every one of the heroes defends with both sword and shield, as well as staff, in order to defend the planet known as Gaia. While the grand scheme of things sounds familiar and simple enough, its anatomical structure and storytelling is one that rings proudly. This time around, pervasive human existential thoughts were the driving force behind the theme and plot of the game's tale. Ranging from the heroes to the villains, the idea of existence and what it meant to serve a purpose in the world were thoughts that floated through every one of their heads. Zidane was a young, cheeky, and noble thief who is eventually faced with a revelation that defies the truth of his life and is charged with the task of choosing to either become a savior or an angel of death. Princess Garnet, though young, inexperienced, and unaware of her own mysterious heritage, bears the weight of her entire kingdom and its people upon her shoulders. Her transformation from a sly, spunky, yet ignorant royal family member into a strong young woman, balancing both of her dual lineage as a summoner and as a queen, is a mesmerizing tale that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And of course, the Black Mage Vivi, who journeys through an evolution of humbleness and what it means to truly be alive. Surely these elements combined, along with the imminent threats to the planet and the world that we cherish, is more than enough to symbolize the true legacy of the name Final Fantasy. Donning the classic four-man parties, familiar job roles, and good old Final Fantasy strategy and battles, the gameplay is nothing short of what you'd expect. Limit breaks return in a style similar to 7, in the form of a meter that fills as you take damage. Once filled, it unleashes your hero's trance, a mode where your character's strengths and abilities multiply tenfold. Adopting the ever-present job system, each of your characters always felt unique, always having something new to learn, and were always capable of bringing something destructive to the table that is combat. The strategy and fun itself is drawn from the difficulty of having to piece together a type of synergy with your party and their individual jobs. It's merely RPG tactics in its purest form, and those who appreciate a good spin on the ubiquitous Final Fantasy gameplay are sure to enjoy it. Doing away with materia and junctioning, weapons and armor return with a familiar face. Of course, coinciding with the unique and individual abilities that your characters learn, your crew may also learn a slew of interesting and useful techniques from your equipment and from gaining ability points after battle. Combinations and placements of these techniques is what adds a fresh layer to the time-honored battle system of Final Fantasy. And last but not least, the ability to share set equipment and abilities creates a second wave of customization to the heroes, so as to avoid a stagnant path of growth as defined by the character's own unique job. And let's not forget the crafting of better armor and weaponry from your friendly synthesis shop. Final Fantasy has been known to tell stories that launch us, the audience, into a world of whimsical charms and epic battles. It has always been able to deliver on its namesake and oftentimes surpass its predecessors in order to raise the bar. While Final Fantasy IX was strong and enriching all the way through in all aspects possible, it never quite brought much that was new to the table. It's arguable, to say the least, that this was intentional, as 9 was much more of a nod to the 2D sprite era of the franchise. Fans all across the board carried a generally positive look on this diamond hidden in the rough, yet there was just something in the midst that kept it from becoming anything spectacularly groundbreaking. 25 years in the long-running series, and Final Fantasy still exists today. Whether or not each game thus far have been deserving of the name Final Fantasy, we can rest assured that 9 was a game that rightfully won its eponymous accolade. It told a story of grandeur, of purpose and meaning behind the bigger questions that we oftentimes ask ourselves, the very same questions that these believable and crowd-pleasing characters have asked themselves, while putting heart, soul, and spirit into trying to save the world and protect those close to their hearts. Its ability to conjure up old mechanics and designs and mold them into a sculpted piece that shines with beauty is almost certainly a lost trait that is not appreciated enough, especially when looking back upon the plateau of RPGs that have arisen since the year 2000. Unique and gorgeous art styles, along with some of Nobuo Uematsu's finest work, sprinkled in with a truly awe-inspiring plot of war, love, and a never-ending fight against evil, Final Fantasy IX sheds enough light on the endearing and fondly remembered history of Square, while at the same time keeping an identity that truly marks the growth of this never-ending fairy tale. If those elements alone don't scream the name Final Fantasy, I don't want to know what will. Even Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi himself has stated that 9 was his personal favorite. And even though a few players may not have viewed this as a step forward in the growth of this series after Final Fantasies 7 and 8, many people do agree that Final Fantasy IX was still a step in the right direction.